Oh my God, it's all going to go wrong. Everything is terrible, and the Vikings will never win another game again. They're going to lose the division. Oh God, help! You like that? 3, 1, 2, 3. You like it?
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I am your host, your pal and the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL. You can find the show on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. You can, of course, find Locked On Vikings on Amazon Fire or Roku. Just download the Locked On Sports Minnesota app if you have that particular kind of smart TV. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 5 of your favorite players and whether they'll do better or worse than their Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money, and first-time users get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON at prizepicks.com or on the app. Today on the show is Twitter Tuesday. That means I'm taking your questions. So let's get into it. If you want to send me questions, you can always send them to me at Luke Braun NFL or at Locked On Vikings on Twitter. You can fill out the Google form in the show notes or send me an email at lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com. If you got something a little more long form, that is all good. I am so sorry if I don't get to all of your questions. I got a lot of them, but thankfully there were 2 things that came up a lot. So we'll get to those 2 things first. And the first, a lot of you are just sad. And you know what? That's okay. I said, please vent to me. And some of you just did. I think the version of this I like the best came from Mary, who asked, please tell me this is just a fluke. Okay, Mary, it's a fluke. Okay, so here's the deal. A lot of people just ask, like, why do I put myself through this? Like, what is the point of going through all this pain? Why does God hate me and God hates the Vikings? Here's what I'll tell you. I go through this spiel once every couple of seasons because the nature of an NFL season is that you will lose games. You will lose games in heartbreaking fashion. You will get blown out. It just happens, right? Nobody goes 17-0, 116-0 ever, and that's probably a season the Patriots don't really love thinking about. So ask yourself why you're watching sports. Really dig into it. What is the point, right? And my guess is that most of you are not watching sports so that you can see the Vikings win. It's always more fun when the Vikings win, of course. But the primary reason you got involved in football, the reason you love it so much that you're listening to a daily podcast about the Vikings, is probably not because I like it so much when the Vikings win. It's probably something more like because of a relationship with a relative, like, my dad used to take me to games or something. That's mine, right? Something like it, brings family together. Something maybe you just love the sport. Maybe you coach football at your own level and you love that. Maybe you just were kind of just a family thing you were born into. Maybe you have a buddy that's a Packers fan that you love to talk trash with. But there's usually something a little more human than that. And in times when it just feels like the Vikings are never going to give you that elusive championship that you're going to want to see, I think it's best to focus on why you're really watching this. There's 2 kinds of fan, I say this a lot. There's 2 kinds of fan. There's the kind of fan that just loves the sport and loves watching it. And, they just like that it gives them an excuse to be with their family or whatever. And then there's the kind of fan that cannot be happy unless their team wins a championship. And if you're that kind of fan, if you're the latter kind of fan, that's valid, but you live in hell. Like your experience will be awful. And if that's the experience you've chosen, free country. But you have a 1 in 32 chance of being happy every year. And you're going to be unhappy more years than you're happy. Even if you choose the best team, even if you choose the Chiefs, right? You got 1 time to be happy. You chose the Patriots, you were happy 6 times in 20 years. That's not a lot. So I would say, why did the Vikings do this to you? Because you let them. Now, we're going to spend the rest of this show basically talking about ways for the Vikings to find other wins, right? I'm not trying to tell you it doesn't matter if they win or not. I guess one of my goals of this show is to make your experience of football better. And I think part of that is understanding why you're doing this. And I guess that's my answer to please tell me this is a fluke. The actual answer to that is it totally might be. They're not going to lose by 37 every week all of a sudden. They're not just going to start losing every game by 40. Like, that's not, there's a really good chance that this is the worst loss the Vikings experience all season. It's a top 5 loss like ever. Yeah, this one's not exactly in the middle of the bell curve. So that's that. And then another one that came up a whole bunch were various versions of offensive line stuff. I'll take this one from Ryan, who asked, given that the Pats are just behind the Dallas Cowboys in pass rush, what can the offense do to not be shelled all game? And MN Hopes asked a similar one. Bill Belichick defense has a high pressure rate, mostly due to blitzes. What could be done to most effectively exploit that? So the answer is going to depend on exactly the strategy we're talking about here. If it's rushes with just 4, there's different kinds. If it's blitzes, there's different kinds. So we'll start with blitzes. If you blitz, there are blitz counters, right? And that just means you have to have worked into all of your plays some kind of hot, some kind of outlet, or the ability to make an adjustment at the line. And this will be on Kirk Cousins to say, hey, I think a blitz is coming, rover. And now the tight end is in protection instead of in a route, right? Like you would maybe do in Madden if you play Madden. If it's stunts, you have to kind of ask, what pair do I trust the most to pick up stunts? Is it Cleveland and Brandell? Probably not. Is it Cleveland and Bradbury? Honestly, that's a contender because I don't really like either side of the Ed Ingram equation. He's been really bad at it. So that's part of it. And then just make sure that okay, we'll split the protection then between, let's say you pick Cleveland and Bradbury. We'll just make sure that Cleveland is helping Blake Brandell on the inside all day long. And then we'll turn the protections the other way. And with any luck, they're overloading that side anyways to try to get a one-on-one with Brandell. So deny the one-on-one just by using Cleveland. And then you're just going to have a really big gap in the A gap. And you just need to make sure that Cleveland and Bradbury are on their P's and Q's to pick that up. That's how you do it. And that's what they have to be able to do. They needed to adjust to that kind of thing on the fly against Dallas, and they just screwed up doing that. So they just need to be ready to do that from the get-go this time. So those are the two main things. I have a whole bunch more questions to get to here on Twitter Tuesday. First things first, though, let me talk to you about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. It is where you can go to get anything under the sun, from a big old minivan for the whole family, or a luxury car, or if you just want to test drive something for a little bit, or if you just want to find something affordable that will get you from point A to point B. You can find that all at Turo, and Turo hosts might even be able to drive that car right out to you, drop it off right for you, so you don't have to deal with all of the other rigmarole you usually would have to deal with. So forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. I also want to talk to you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Get rid of the old daily fantasy model where you got to put together a whole lineup and put that up against 6,000 other people in their lineup. How about you just pick a few of your favorite players, whether they'll do better or worse than their Prize Picks projection, and just play you against the house. And it's not just NFL. You can do this for the World Cup stuff. You can do this for NBA or NHL, college football, what have you. They even go all the way down to like cricket and weird stuff. So if you really want to get degen about it, that is all at prizepicks.com. You can get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 if you use promo code Locked On at sign up. That's promo code Locked On for a $100 match. So if you put in $100, you get $100 out. Put in 50, get 50, up to $100. 100% deposit match. It is free money at prizepicks.com or on the Prize Picks app. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. They will be covering all the stuff, USA playing in the World Cup as I record this. So I don't know how that went, but, listen to Locked On Sports Today. I'm sure Peter will be talking about that and all of the other things in the wide world of sports. Moving on with this Twitter Tuesday mailbag. Next one comes from James K., who asks, how come inferior teams like our rivals fared better than we did when a lot of those teams have worse matchups than we did? You just kind of mean the Packers are pretty clearly a worse team than the Vikings. I don't think that's controversial. They're like a disaster, but they beat the Cowboys and we couldn't beat the Cowboys. So this is just how NFL seasons work, man. I mean, if you are one of those people who gets really wrapped up in like the transitive property of we beat them, but they beat us, but then, team A beats team B. Therefore, if you get really into that, you will get lost really fast if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. Like, you cannot actually get any meaningful analysis out of, the Vikings beat the Lions, and the Lions beat the Commanders, and then the Commanders beat the Eagles, but the Eagles beat the Vikings. Like, if you try to do that, or you say, well, the Packers beat the Cowboys, but we didn't, therefore we are worse than the Packers. Like that logic will not hold at all because we beat the Packers, right? And actually, mathematically, it is impossible for there to be like a top once everybody has taken a loss and everybody has won a game. Once there's no zeros in the win or loss column for anybody, it mathematically must follow that you can make a circle of parity where you can do all 32 teams. These guys beat these guys beat these guys. You could go all the way, all 32. It will always happen. Like it has to because of math. So you don't have to explain it. It's just how it goes. The Cowboys had a better day. They were coming off that Packers game. They learned a lesson. They came and beat us. What I think happened in that game, in this Cowboys game, is just that we came in with a bad game plan. And if we have to play the Cowboys again, I bet we'll do better. I don't think we're going to lose by 45, right? Maybe we won't win, but we'll do better because we'll have some lessons learned. And games ebb and flow over the course of a season. It's just how it goes. Nix asks, do you honestly think the Vikings can make the NFC Championship game? This is the other thing. Sure. Can they? Of course. Yeah. Anybody who is still eligible for the playoffs can, right? Will they? If you knew that, then Vegas wouldn't make any money. We can't predict this, right? But here's what I'll say about this. When it comes to seeding right now, the Vikings are in a spot where if they beat the Lions specifically, they win that game in week 15, I think, and any other game, call it week 18 against the Bears. Well, the Bears will probably have packed it in because they'll be eliminated. Or week 17 against the Packers, who also will probably be eliminated. Win any other game, right? Or they could win against the Patriots or against the Jets or Giants. Like any of those. And the Lions game. They win the division. That's it. The Lions game and one other game. That's all they need to win the division right now. Or any two, I think. Or any three, or any two, and the Lions lose one. And then I think maybe it can come back to tiebreakers or something. But like they're that close to to clinching the division right now. So that means a home playoff game. And right now they've got a 2-game lead on the 2 seed, even after that one, because that game only counts as one. As bad as that game feels, it feels like it undoes all 7 of the wins, like in our hearts, but it doesn't. It only counts for 1. So if the Vikings can hang on to the 2 seed, to their 2-game lead on the 2 seed with 7 games to go, feels pretty doable. If they can do that, that means that they get 2 home games to the NFC Championship. Can you win 2 home playoff games? And by the way, because they're home games and because you're the 2 seed, you're pretty likely to be favored. So can you win as home favorites twice? Against probably good teams, right? You probably have to hit San Francisco or maybe Seattle if they lose their hold on the division, maybe Dallas again, New York, Washington. Those are solid teams. Can you beat them at home and do that twice in a row? You make it to the NFC Championship. Is that going to be likely? Probably not for anybody except like whoever gets the 1 seed and only has to win 1 game to it. Anybody who bets knows how hard it is to parlay 2 games. But can they? Of course they can. And they can fix the problems that led to this loss. Like this is not who they are. No single game is this is the one that's who they are, right? Who they are is going to manifest over the course of the whole season. Purple Buckeye says, Bill Belichick is notorious for taking away what other teams do best. Assuming he keys on Jefferson, how would you counter that? So yeah, I fully expect him to key on Jefferson. And Belichick's classic move for that is to use his second best corner and a safety to cap your best receiver. So he'll shadow or whatever. Now, I don't know if he's still been doing that. I think his defense has changed over the last couple of years, and I'm going to actually ask Mike Debate that on Crossover Thursday, which is going to go up Thursday morning, so make sure you get that in before the game starts. My understanding is right now that he will do it that way. And so you'll have CB1 on Adam Thielen, which will be a difficult matchup, and then you have to like find wins elsewhere. So what I want to do is to essentially stress that by putting guys out of position. I want to use TJ Hawkinson on linebackers a lot for that. I want to motion Justin Jefferson around. I want to make that shadowing second guy really work. And especially motioning Justin Jefferson across formations is going to be a really big thing here because it changes what the safeties do. If you're calling coverages that essentially mean safety on Justin Jefferson's side, cap 18. You work 18 vertical is your first responsibility, and then you work to whatever else happens. I want to make that guy think a lot. So I'm going to have Justin Jefferson go across the formation a lot, both pre and post snap, just to make those safeties really have to think about what their assignment is and always have to be aware of Justin Jefferson. That might mean Jefferson doesn't get any catches at all. Like it might mean he's just a decoy all day, but that's where you force defenders into situations where maybe they can make mistakes. I don't know in particular the weaknesses of the Patriots defense right now or how I would really attack those. But my guess is this would be a game that kind of comes down to like Hawkinson and Osborne and Thielen and the other guys because of the way that Belichick is like famous for being able to take away whoever your Justin Jefferson is. I have a whole bunch more questions. There's no chance I get to all of yours, so I'm so sorry if I didn't get to you. But we'll just kind of keep plugging along here. Next up, though, I want to talk to you about Bet Online. It's your one-stop shop for all things Grambling. As we sit right now, the Vikings are a 3-point favorite on Thanksgiving against the Patriots, so you can get your bet in on that if you think, man, these Vikings are never winning another game. If you're one of those people, well, then you can get the Patriots in 3 points. Go do it. It's Bet Online. You can also bet on the World Cup. You can bet on hockey, basketball, all of that good stuff. You can find at betonline.net. Player props, build wacky parlays like I know y'all love to do, or even bet live right in the middle of a game. The best live bet in all of football is whenever the Chiefs have a deficit in the second quarter, just bet them. Just take their money line. They'll win the game every time. Patrick Mahomes comeback, baby. I've been so much on that. Go find all that stuff at betonline.net where the game starts. Moving on with this Twitter Tuesday mailbag. The next one comes out from Riganoko, who says, do you feel we were overconfident or outschemed and overpowered by Dallas? Show your work. It's hard to show work on overconfidence. I can't really speak to the emotional state of the team with any confidence, like at all, right? Like I'm not there. Who knows? I haven't met these guys. But I will say that the locker room description, I talked to Alec Lewis, I think it was, or maybe it was Sam Ekstrom, somebody who was in the locker room who said that like the locker room after that game against the Bills, the way that he described, I think it was Alec because he didn't know the context, because he just started covering the Vikings. But he said, everybody felt like super surprised. Like they were like, holy crap, how'd we get away with that one? They were all kind of like, they didn't feel real. It was like this surreal feeling. And it was ecstatic like it always is after a win. But it was like, man, whoa. Like it was this sort of surprise. And I remember hearing the Minneapolis Miracle described the same way. And I feel like I actually answered a question about that on Twitter Tuesday last week, but then cut it for time. Maybe I didn't cut it for time. I don't know. Let me know. But I did kind of like, it is kind of the same vibe, right? And then they just go get like blown out by a really good team. So maybe they were overconfident. Maybe just the emotional letdown was something. I don't know. You'll have to talk to a team psychologist or something. But in terms of overplayed and outmatched and all that stuff, I do think they had a bad plan. Blake Brandel got beat by Micah Parsons. Andrew Booth got beat by like Michael Gallup. And I think they actually had him on CeeDee Lamb one-on-one once, which is a coaching failure. I think it all goes all the way to the top for me. And Kevin O'Connell took lots of responsibility on the podium and stuff. But to me, it goes all the way to, I think I said yesterday on some show or other, they lost this game on Tuesday. When they came up with their game plan, they lost this game. And the inability to adjust. That's how they lost this game. So I don't think that they were overconfident. Obi-Wan Jacoby asks, do you think that when Dantzler and Evans return, we'll see Evans move to the slot? Probably not. I don't think Evans has ever played the slot, so I doubt that somebody who's never played the position would be better than Chandon Sullivan. As many critiques as I have for Sullivan, I don't think he's worse than somebody who's never played the position before. I think Evans just goes back to being a backup, which is good. Like having him as a backup, I think is nice, right? I think he's a good backup corner. So I'll take that as like depth. Skull Actuary says, what do you think our future at running back looks like next year, assuming we win one and only one playoff game? Okay, so that's the situation. Let's say we get the 2 seed and we win, and then we lose to like Dallas in the divisional round or something like that. What is the future of running back? So the playoff result doesn't matter to this too much. Here's the deal. Alexander Madison walks, right? You're not giving him a second contract to be backup running back. He's going to go be a starter somewhere. Dalvin Cook is a possible cap casualty. The cut makes sense if they want to make some cap space. He's also a restructure candidate. Like there's probably something happens to that contract, whether it's a cut or a restructure, or maybe even like a greater extension or something like that. But we'll see what they want to do with Dalvin. Remember, all of these guys are inherited. The people who were deeply in love with Dalvin and loved him more than anything in the world, they don't work here anymore. Kevin O'Connell didn't pick Dalvin. He might want a running back that's his choice, or he might want to not have as much poured into running back like the Rams kind of do. Like, who knows, right? So I don't know. However, I think a good shifty playmaker type, kind of the mold of Wangu, like another Wangu almost, feels like a good idea. And I would take a mid-round running back in this upcoming draft. I'd be pretty happy about that. Massive KOC fan says, KOC likes 11 personnel, but our OL cannot protect Kirk, especially in 11. What do you think of using Ham as the back in 11 sets to add some pass blocking juice? Not to mention he has better hands than Dalvin. I do think, like, yeah, I guess Ham is a better pass protector than Dalvin Cook. Probably. I'll take your word for it, I guess. I don't have a sense. And I don't think he's a better pass catching weapon than Dalvin Cook, because Dalvin Cook can run like a crosser on mesh and like beat a linebacker around the edge. I don't think CJ Ham can do that. CJ Ham's more of just an outlet guy. So in some cases, like, sure. But if you're taking Dalvin Cook off the field, you're putting CJ Ham on and it's 11 personnel, the second you start doing that as like a way to bolster your pass game, it is a tell. They will, like, the defense will know, unless you're also planning to run it to CJ Ham to like as a running back sometimes. And he's like the fifth string dude for that. So I don't think you want to do that. Brian Thornberry asks, when calling coverage and shifts in the O-line, does it land more on the QB or center, or do both have to be on the same page? It just seems like stunts kill this O-line and they need to workshop it during this mini bye after Thursday. Yeah, for sure. That's something the O-line should work on. It depends on the team. Different teams do it different, especially once you get to the lower levels, the high school and the college. It kind of is like whatever cat's smart enough to do it, does it. But at the pro level, everybody's smart enough. So the way the Vikings had done it in years past, and I have to assume they do it still, Kirk Cousins told us a couple years ago that like it's Bradbury's job, it's the center's job, but but Cousins has veto power. So he will let the center do his thing, but he'll say, like, he'll override it if he sees something that's wrong, because ultimately it's his body on the line. So that's, I think, how a lot of NFL teams will do it, that it's the center, but the QB can adjust the protection. If you hear lucky, or I think I've heard like Lucy, or any like L word, that usually means we're sliding the protection left now. And I think like Ringo is the word I use, but a lot of R words, or sometimes it's like Bruce, so it's BR, just to hide the R so the defense doesn't know what they're hearing. If you hear those words, you can kind of, okay, is there an L or an R in one of those words? That probably means that it's the protection moving that way, and that's the quarterback kind of pulling the veto card. Terrence asks, where is the RB screen game in this offense? It's bad. So the thing about screens, I get this question every week, so I'll answer it now. Screens require really precise rehearsal and timing. And to really be good at screens, you kind of have to commit to it in the offseason and in the offseason program. And the Vikings had bigger fish to fry in the offseason program because they were installing an entire offense. Because you want that precise timing. You need it on like the zone run you call 16 times a day. So they had to get that stuff down. And I don't think they really got to work on screens enough. So the timing is off. If the pass catcher goes out for the route before the O-line breaks, then a defender who is supposed to be relating to that running back or whatever will probably be releasing with him. And if the O-line isn't out there to catch that guy, he just blows up the screen. And it's like you ran a slow swing pass for nothing. Similarly, if the O-line breaks too early and the running back can't get out, or they're late, then the defense will be like, whoa, O-line is breaking like it's a screen. And then they'll run at it and they'll be able to blow it up. So it has to be really precisely timed. Screens are so hard to run, and they just don't have it rehearsed enough. So I just don't think it's something that they can really go to that often. Tight end screens, tunnel screens, wide receiver stuff is a little bit easier because there's just less moving parts and there's less, you don't have to ask a guard to like throw a shoulder into someone and then run out to the numbers. It's a lot of hauling ass for that big old guy. A little bit easier when you can just line up in 3x1 and run a tunnel screen. And the O-line doesn't have to really do anything. So that's why the screens look the way they do. And I think tight end screens are a little bit more similar. There's less ground to cover. That means there's less time for things to fall out of sync. And so I think that's why they like those middle tight end screens. And once those get good, I think those can be a really good part of a McVay offense. Last question. Comes from Easy Cheese Wizard, who asks, I just want to forget that game ever existed. Fair enough, buddy. So how about your favorite Pokemon generation to Nuzlocke and why? Any special rules you give yourself? Okay, so I'm a big fan of the Nuzlocke challenge. I've been doing the Nuzlocke challenge since it came out in like 2011 or 2012. I've been there. Do not cite the deep lore to me. I was there when it was written. All right. If you are older and you do not know Pokemon that well, or if you're just not a Pokemon fan, you don't know what a Nuzlocke is. It is a Pokemon game like the Game Boy games, and with a self-imposed series of rules to make it more challenging and a more adult-appropriate experience. Those games are made for kids. They're too easy to really be fun for adults, but if you self-impose some extra challenges, they can be. The two rules in particular are if you can only catch one Pokemon in every area, only the first thing you see, and then if it faints, it dies. So if you have a Pokemon faint, even if it's your starter and your favorite Pokemon, once it faints, you have to put it away and you can never use it anymore. That's the challenge. And the answer to what is the best generation to do is your favorite one, whatever your favorite is. Mine's probably, I don't know. It goes back and forth, but probably Gen 3. That's just the one I have the most nostalgia for. Probably the one I know my way around best is Gen 1. But anything can be good. It's whatever your favorite game is. The one you know the best is going to be the most enjoyable one. When you just know inside and out, you know every trainer, you know what the gym leaders have. That's going to be the one. In terms of special rules, I like things like once you enter a route, you can't leave until you've beaten every trainer, and restrictions on healing and stuff like that. Restrictions on duplicates and stuff like that are quality of life things. I can answer this for a much longer way. If you are interested in that, shoot me a DM. That is it for this Twitter Tuesday episode. Tomorrow we're doing bold predictions. So as you listen to this, I probably already have the bold prediction tweet out. Just go to my Twitter and answer that. I will not see it if you send it to me. Bold predictions, I just can't track them as well as I can track Twitter Tuesday questions. So we'll do that. We'll do You Betcha. And I will also be on the road. So I'm going to be traveling all day Tuesday. So I will have to do this late. And that means I might not be up until Wednesday. And the sound is going to be weird. And I'm going to be in a different place. So that is the plan for the rest of the week. I'll be on the road. We'll do our best. All right. We'll suffer through it together. I'll see you all then. And as always, Skull.